What is the point of studying spirituality? What is the point of learning what the spiritual gurus have to teach? Why do people feel that so important? Well, there's numerous explanations for this, and for the most part, people that go that route think that that is the ultimate goal of life, is to attain spiritual enlightenment, to become co-equal in your experiences and wisdom and knowledge with Jesus or Buddha or Krishna. And that once you get to that level of understanding and wisdom, you have attained the ultimate goal of what life is about and what spirituality is about. And I'm here to refute that is absolutely not true. There's no truth in it whatsoever. Now let me say this clearly. If I were to say, and I'm not saying I am, I'm just saying if I were to say, because I do actually say this jokingly, but if I were to say that I am currently the most enlightened person, spiritually speaking, on the planet at this particular time, similar to what might be considered Jesus when he was here 2,000 years ago, or Buddha 2,500 years ago, or Krishna at, who knows, 5,000 years ago or whatever. If I were to say that I am in the same league as those individuals, if I were to say that, how does that equate to what I think of myself, or what God, the Creator, thinks of me? Well, in reality, it could be compared to being an accomplished woodworker. In other words, is it a requirement to become one with God, to transcend this spiritual reality, to become enlightened and be like the Buddha and stuff like that? Is it necessary to be an accomplished woodworker to do that? Well, most people with a modicum of wisdom would say no. Woodworking is not a critical thing to understand, but becoming enlightened and that sort of thing is critical. Okay? But that's what they would say. And so I'm telling you, if I were to say that I am the most enlightened person in the world, I'm telling you right now that it's really not that important. In fact, it's not important at all, any more than woodworking is important. It is just a hobby. It is what an individual does. It has no power. It has no value in regards to you are better than someone else. It's comparable to woodworking. There is absolutely no value to it in the eternal scheme of things if your goal is to become like Buddha, well, then that's like the same person saying, well, your goal is to become a super accomplished woodworker. Neither one has any value in the scheme of things when you look at enlightenment or being one with God or the purpose of life. Is the purpose of life to become an accomplished woodworker? Well, you'd have to say yes, or you'd have to say no. It doesn't really matter. None of it matters. So what does matter if that doesn't matter? That's the point of this video. What does matter, in fact, cannot be avoided. It doesn't matter how hard you try. It doesn't matter how enlightened you are. It doesn't matter how aware you are. Nothing matters. You can't avoid performing your duty in this life, in this reality, 100% perfected. There's no way for you to avoid it. And the reason there's no way to avoid it is because that's the way the Creator God made it. And the Creator God is not an idiot, is not unintelligent. The Creator God created this reality so that you would be able to fulfill your purpose of being. And there's no way to avoid it because the Creator God made it that way. So what is the importance? Well, the importance is for you to be you. And when I say you to be you, what is the you? Now, a lot of gurus get off on going into this nebulous concepts of what are you? What's the awareness of you? Well, if you drop back, what is being aware? And if you like this, what is it that likes it? And is it the body that likes it? And where's the awareness? And drill down deeper to what the essence of the awareness is. And is that aware that it's aware? And how can the aware individual be aware of itself? On and on and on. These are just circular games that the mind plays to try to make sense of reality. But that's what the physical mind does. The gurus that talk that way, they may be wise, they may be intelligent, all these things may be true, but in regards to defining the purpose and point of reality, they're just as lost as everyone else. And the reason they're lost as everyone else is because they are not humble enough to put themselves in second position, so to say, and love God. Acknowledge the fact that they are a separate individual, which would demolish the concept of spiritual non-duality, and realize that there is you, there is others, and then there's God. This is why Jesus said, love yourself, love others, and then love God. Because there's nothing else in existence. Everything else is an illusion. Everything else is a manifestation from the mind of God that created it out of nothing. When you study spirituality, it's a hobby. And why is it a hobby? Well, some people find it to be a source of power. And Lucifer is a good example of that. Shiva is, in Hinduism, a good example of that. Well, Shiva and Lucifer are the same people. But those individuals are the perfect example of discovering the true nature of reality and trying to understand things. But they do it for the purpose of power. Now, those that are like Jesus do it because that's just when you love yourself and you love others and you love God, you try to find out what reality is. That's just what you do. It's not that it's an important thing, any more important than doing woodworking. It is just the outward flow. It's the outward and the drawing in of what you love. And if in marriage, the two people that truly love each other are constantly trying to find out how to help each other, and they want to know about each other. And so that is the natural condition that takes place. And so when you love God, the natural condition is to importune, to pray, to ask, to acknowledge your love for this Creator God. And then the reciprocal can come to you, but only after you initiate that for possibly decades of time. And then when that takes place, then now you start to understand the purpose of life and everything else. Well, from a satanic point of view, they can do the same thing, and they can discover the point and the purpose of life, and they can discover the essence of what individuality is and everything. And then they use that for power or profit or whatever the case may be, but it all boils down to power. That's the difference, power or love. So I wanted to talk about that in this video. That's the nitty gritty of it. That the essence of what you are, for instance, Jesus said, there's many times they say, what is the fruit that you produce? So an apple tree grows up, and what does it produce as a fruit? Well, it produces apples. And so when you grow up and you produce love, for instance, well, in perfect love, there's absolutely no fear, because love cancels fear. The less love, the more fear comes into play. And that's why in the satanic nature of teaching and stuff like that, there's a lot of fear involved. And that's why people that gain the power, gain the knowledge of spiritual stuff, they impose that fear upon other people by doing hate, greed. All these things cause fear to take place. But love, which satanic people have none, Lucifer has no love. There's no love. They teach it in Hinduism that Shiva is the epitome of love, but that's called cognitive dissonance, where they think something is true that it totally isn't true, and there's no sign that it's true. When you annihilate people and kill and destroy and all that kind of stuff, that's not love. That's causing fear to take place. But when you create love as the purpose of life, for instance, I was saying, what truly is the purpose of life? What is it that can't be avoided because God created this reality, and therefore it can't be thwarted by you, me, or anybody else? So what is it we're going to do? Well, every situation that arises in Christianity, a lot of times they say, well, our life is a test and we're tested constantly. But that's a corrupt version meaning, and it's totally not true. God does not test you. That's like saying a seed. When you plant it, you give it the nutrients and all that kind of stuff. Are you testing it? No, you're not testing it. It is going to grow into whatever the essence of that particular seed is. It doesn't need to be tested. It just needs the nutrients. You are the same as a seed, an unknown seed, of course. And so there's no testing. There is just products provided, nutrients and stuff. And the Creator God is the one that creates these things. And coexisting with other people, evil people too, there's all kinds of situations that arise that give opportunity for you to define what you are. Because that's the issue with, in other words, what are you? Well, you are what you exude, what your fruit is. So in every opportunity, you can choose to be greedy, or you can choose, and there's no parts to greed. In other words, the essence of greed, if you could put it in a box, there's no parts to it. It's just greed. Okay, over here there's love. Where are the parts in love? There's no parts. It's just love. Okay, it doesn't matter how many people love. You can't define the parts to love. So when you make your choices and you incarnate many, 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 many times as a human being. And according to Hinduism, which there's a lot of truth in Hinduism, or Sanatana Dharma, there's a lot of truth in it that talks about how you've incarnated as animals, bugs, this, that, or whatever, hundreds of thousands of times. And that's true. And as you continue to develop, and you incarnate many times as a human being. And each time you're given opportunities to choose what to do. And many times, like the back side of a tapestry, the front side is absolutely beautiful, and the back side is just this helter-skelter mess of threads going all over the place. And so that's the same thing. In other words, in a single lifetime, you are born, you grow, and let's say you're 60 years old. In Christianity, they think, well, you were bad, so you're going to go to hell, or you were good, and you're going to go to heaven. But that's just the judgment of a single piece of a puzzle. Let's say it's got 1,000 pieces to it. And, well, if it's red, then you're going to hell. Well, it just happens to be red, this piece of the puzzle, because it's a red car or whatever. And so it's like, oh, well, you're red, you're going to hell. Well, what about the rest of the puzzles, you see? So you can't judge it on a single lifetime just like you don't know what the tapestry looks like, because the backside is all you're seeing from your current perspective. You have to have insight from the Creator God to come down to you to explain these things, or to experience these things of what I'm telling you about, for you to know that they're true. You can feel it in your heart. When I say feel, it's not really a feel, but it's a confirmation of what I'm saying is true. And when you do this over millions of years or whatever, you're continually defining what you are. And at the end of things, because you can't avoid it, that's the thing. When I say you can't avoid it, when you started the process, you could have avoided it at that time. You didn't have to respond to the light of God, but you chose to respond to the light of God, and thus started the process that you are in right now. And you can't avoid going forward, because you're the one that started it. You're the one that started the ball rolling. And now you're here as a human being because you've continued to make choices that got you to the point of a human being. And now what are you doing? And what choices are you making? For instance, somebody robs you. What are you going to do about that? Well, who knows? You might shoot the robber dead, but does that mean you're bad, or does that mean you're good? Well, I don't know. What does the front side of the tapestry look like? Because maybe by shooting the robber, that is what you feel out of the feeling of love, because you had to protect your family or whatever. Or you might have felt love for the robber and you didn't shoot them. There's no way to know from a single piece of the puzzle. And so when you take these things over so many in periods of existences and everything, and then you judge it, so to say, or then you're able to analyze what the essence of what you have chosen each time. Because they talk about the natural man as an enemy to God. Well, what is the natural man? Well, as a human being, you have what they would call a soul, or a spirit is what other people, there is a difference actually. And well, indigenous to this physical body is also a spirit of Lucifer, or Shiva. And that particular spirit is natural, because it's natural to the physical body. Well, that spirit is an enemy to God, because this is the kingdom of Lucifer. Even Jesus recognized that. And as such, you're constantly in battle against what this physical body wants, because your true essence spirit doesn't get hungry for food, because it isn't a physical entity. But the physical body gets hungry for food, and the physical body is an animal. Its sole purpose seems to be to survive and exist in this vicious reality. And so how are you going to negotiate, when I say you, the essence of you, how are you going to negotiate survival against love and everything? And so this particular life is an extremely, it extremely magnifies the core essence of what you are, because you're pitted against extremely difficult circumstances in this physical reality, with both disease and sickness and greedy people trying to destroy you, and governments, and it's a very, 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 very difficult challenge, if you will. But that allows you to find what you are. A lot of people are on the path. A lot of people on this planet. In fact, most people on this planet are on the path to following Lucifer, and there are few that aren't. And so, are you going to be a woodworker? There's nothing wrong with that. Or are you going to pursue spirituality? And there's nothing wrong with that. But just recognize that it doesn't matter what you pursue. It isn't going to conflict with the choices that you make. And this is why I don't recall who the ancient guru was in China or whatever, that or India, that talked about, before he was enlightened, he carried water and rivers were rivers and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm talking about if you've been studying this stuff. And then after he became enlightened, it came right back to the same thing before he started, because he understood that after enlightenment, it doesn't matter, because nothing changes. You're still going to make the choices to love or to hate. You're still going, and it isn't going to make any difference whether you're enlightened or not. None whatsoever. But I'm not advocating not to pursue enlightenment. I have, obviously. Well, excuse me. I never have pursued enlightenment. I love God. I love you. I love myself. I love my wife. And that motivated me to search and to discover the things of spirituality. It's because I have a proclivity for these things, because it just feels right to me, okay? And so as that continued to go throughout my life, then I experienced things like enlightenment and stuff. But that doesn't make any difference. It's just like a hobby. So that's the point of this video. I'm going to be gone for who knows how long, to McDermott, Nevada, to help my son do some construction stuff for who knows how long, a couple of weeks or whatever, so I might not make another video for a while. But in the meantime, continue to research these things that I'm telling you. I won't say they're important, but they're important to you if you're looking at this sort of thing. In other words, it's not important, but it's important to you. And why is it important to you? For no other reason, because you have this feeling of desire. Now, maybe you desire it because you want to be like Lucifer, or maybe you want to be like God. It doesn't matter what you want to be like. You're going to be exactly what you are in the end. And so you're on this path and you're making choices. And so you can talk about awareness and what is aware, and is the aware aware of being aware, and you can play all these games and make circular logic and all these sorts of things. That's fine too if you want to play that game. It doesn't matter. The point being is you're not going to avoid being what you are. The seed of what you are is going to develop, and you're going to make those choices. You, nobody else, you. And again, recapping, this is a single lifetime. You can't judge things based upon a single lifetime. You have a massive amount of things that you've accomplished to get to the point of being a human being. anyways, in closing, I love you, and I really hope that this has some sort of meaning for you or satisfies something. And in the eternity, we shall be eternally friends. And that's why, lastly, I wanted to say about love. If your fruit is love and it becomes pure love, then the love of God, which is the epitome of love, then when if not if God is love, and then when you produce love as fruit, then you're pure love, and then when this love merges, because that's all there is, or there's the absence of love, then you and God are one. Does that make sense? And so that's why Jesus said, I and the Father are one. That's because they both had love for one another and they loved each other. And so when you merge all of this love, there's no distinction of particles of love, but there is distinction of the essences that produce the love. And so that's the same description of Advaita. It's saying not to. Of course, nobody typically understands what Advaita means. They reduce it to non-duality, which is the ignorance of what the true nature of reality is, because they don't acknowledge the existence of a God that loves them and that they would love God. And since there's this division, and then in another life, hopefully they'll not be so ignorant and they'll wake up and understand that what the true nature of reality is. But that's the point of Advaita, or that's not the point, that's the explanation of Advaita, and that's the same explanation of when Jesus said, I and the Father are one. When you combine love and it's 100% pure love, then there's no separate distinction, because there's no particles to love. This is very difficult for the human brain to comprehend. In fact, it's impossible for the human, because the human brain is a physical, it's the natural man, it's whatever. You can't understand these things I'm telling you through the physical body. You have to transcend it to the spiritual, or the essence, or the soul, and have a connection to the Creator to be able to understand that, and then to try to bring that kind of stuff into your awareness and then explain these things to you. So what I'm saying is, if what I'm saying is difficult to understand, it's because you're using the brain, the mind, and you need to use the spiritual essence of yourself to understand these things. Anyways, it's probably clear as mud, but thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day. I love you. Bye.